What's up, my friends, and welcome back to the Influence Exchange. Thank you for pressing play and taking time out of your busy day to listen and watch this episode. I'm your host, JV, and today's episode, we're going to go over 5 strong topics on why talent is common and discipline is rare, on why discipline is doing it anyway, the discipline gap, building discipline when motivation disappears, and end with the disciplined blueprint. 3 big moves that change everything. I'm going to ask you this. Why do some people with less talent go further than people with more? And why do people with fewer skills, fewer connections, and fewer advantages sometimes wins? And why do some people break through while others stay right where they started? Now think about the difference maker nobody posts about, the advantage nobody brags about, the discipline no one celebrates, but everyone wants the results from. That difference is discipline. Not the social media version, not the motivational quote version, not the feel good for 5-minute version, the real version. The version that wakes you up when motivation is gone, the version that keeps you moving when no one is watching, the version that makes you show up when you're tired, busy, unsure, or uncomfortable. Because here's the hard truth. Talent opens doors, discipline keeps them open, and talent without discipline, that just potential into frustration. I want you to think about something for a moment. How many times have you started strong only to fall off later? How many goals have you set but never finished? How many times have you said, "This is the year," only to repeat the cycle? Let me tell you something that might hit close. It's not because you're not capable. It's not because you lack ability. And it's not because you aren't smart enough. It's because discipline wasn't built. Structure wasn't in place. And follow through wasn't strengthened. And today, we're going to change that. In this episode, I'm going to show you, from my experience and research, how discipline changes your identity, not just your schedule. Why motivation fails, but structure wins. How advantaged people outperform gifted ones. And what it really takes to build habits that last when life gets heavy. Because once you master discipline, you don't chase motivation. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You don't rely on luck. You become reliable. You become dangerous in the best way. So whether you're listening on your drive to work, in the gym, at home, or in a quiet moment alone, I want you locked in. Because this may be the episode that doesn't just motivate you, it recognizes you. Let's break a myth right now. Talent is not rare, execution is. And I need you to hear this, not as motivation, but as truth. Everywhere you look, people are gifted. Talented athletes who never trained consistently, talented entrepreneurs who never followed through, talented leaders who never grew emotionally, talented people with big dreams and empty habits. Talent is potential, discipline is proof. And here's the uncomfortable reality. The world is not short on ability. It's short on people who finish what they start. You might be listening right now thinking, I have talent, I have ideas, I know I could do more, and I feel like I'm capable of more. And you know, you're right, because potential without discipline becomes regret. Let me say that again. Potential without discipline becomes regret. And you don't want to wake up 5 or 10 years from now wondering, what if I had stayed consistent? What if I didn't quit? What if I trusted the process? Here's what discipline really is. Not hype, not motivation, not perfection. Discipline is showing up on days when nobody's clapping, when nobody's watching, when nobody cares, when nobody feels exciting, when the results aren't visible yet. Discipline is you showing up for your future before your future knows your name. And most people never talk about this part. Instead, everyone talks about talent, luck, and timing. Nobody talks about boredom, repetition, unseen reps, silent commitment. But that's where success is actually built. Let me be real with you for a second. You don't lose in life because you lack ability. You lose when you get tired of being patient, you get lazy with consistency, you wait to feel motivated instead of choosing to act, you quit quietly when nobody is watching. And the biggest lie in personal development is this: once I feel fired up, then I show up. No, that's not how real growth works. You don't wait for motivation, you build motivation by moving first. Action creates energy, movement creates momentum, consistency creates belief. And you deserve to know this. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. Because every single time you show up when you don't feel like it, you are telling your future self, I'm not giving up on you. And here's the truth most people don't like. The disciplined person will work out, outlast, outgrow, and outrise. The talented person who never shows up, talent impresses people. Discipline changes your life. So let me ask you something straight. Where in your life are you relying on talent instead of building discipline? Is it your health, your career, your goals, your mindset, your habits, your leadership? If you don't build discipline, life will choose your outcomes for you. But when you develop discipline, you choose your future. This episode isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming reliable to yourself. And when you can master that, you don't just change your schedule, you change your identity. Now let's talk about the part nobody likes. Discipline is not the exciting part of success, it's the invisible part. I'm doing the work when nobody's praising you. It's staying consistent when nothing is happening yet. It's choosing progress on the days you feel tired, unmotivated, or unsure. Because discipline doesn't show up loudly. It shows up quietly, first thing in the morning when nobody's awake yet, late at night when everyone else is relaxing, in the moments where quitting could be easier than continuing. Discipline is choosing the long road when shortcuts are right in front of you. And if I'm being real with you, this hasn't always been easy for me either. There were moments in my life where I started strong and faded fast. Moments where motivation got me moving, but inconsistency kept me from arriving. I would get fired up, make a plan, feel hopeful, and then life would hit. Work would pile up, energy would fade, doubt would creep in, motivation would disappear. And that's when I start telling myself things like, I get back to it tomorrow. I just need a break. This isn't the right time for me. But what I eventually had to face was this. It wasn't life holding me back. It was me negotiating with my own discipline. I wasn't failing. I was fading, quietly, slowly, without realizing it. Until one day, it finally clicked. Discipline doesn't wait for things to get easier. Discipline makes you stronger when life doesn't. Let me say that again. Discipline doesn't wait for better condition. It performs in bad conditions. Because life doesn't pause when you're tired. Dreams don't wait until you feel confident. Opportunities don't schedule around your comfort zone. And here's something nobody warned me about earlier in my life. You won't always feel like the person in your future requires you to be. But you still have to show up anyways. You don't become disciplined after success. You become disciplined before it, so that you're ready when it arrives. But that's the part that hurts a little. but also sets you free. Because now you realize your future isn't blocked by your past, it's waiting on your discipline. Not your talent, not your intention, not your potential, your discipline. If you want a different life, you need different habits. If you want bigger results, you need better standards. If you want elevated outcome, you need elevated self-expectations. Let me ask you something personal. What promises have you made to yourself that you kept breaking? Not career related, not relationship related, to you. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, your confidence shrinks, and every time you do, your identity strengthens. Discipline is not about harshness, it's about honesty. Honesty about who you say you want to become and what you're actually willing to do to get there. And here's the truth most people never hear. Discipline isn't built in dramatic moments, it's built on boring days. It's built when you show up even when you're numb. You stick to the routine when there's no reward. You follow through when nobody notices. Those days feel meaningless until one day they make meaning. Because behind every disciplined life, it's someone who decides, I'm done depending on mood to build my future. And I want that for you. Not a perfect life, a disciplined one. Because discipline does what motivation cannot. It carries when feelings fail. And if you develop that, you don't just change your calendar, you change your character. Now I want to talk to you directly. Not in theory, not in psychology, in real life. Because discipline isn't something you read about, it's something you live. So let's walk through a few scenarios, and if one of these sound familiar, that's not a coincidence. That's awareness knocking. Scenario 1. The vision of you no one sees. You have goals, big ones, but behind closed doors, your routine doesn't match them. You talk about wanting more, but your habits are built for average. You plan to wake up early, but you hit snooze. You talk about getting in shape, but skip the workouts. You talk about starting something meaningful, but you scroll on your phone instead. You're not lazy, you're just inconsistent. And here's the part that stings a little. Your future doesn't care how motivated you are. It responds to what you do. Discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you are trying to become. Mismatch creates frustration. Alignment creates results. Scenario 2. You keep starting but never finishing. You have started a new routine, a business idea, a fitness plan, a professional goal, a personal transformation, but you haven't stayed. Not because you're incapable, but because you didn't build structure around your intention. And without structure, emotion runs the show. You start when it feels good, you quit when it gets hard, you pause when it gets uncomfortable, and before you realize it, weeks turns into months, and months turns into silence, and silence convinces you, maybe this just isn't for me. But here's the truth, it was for you. You just didn't give it long enough. Discipline doesn't show up in the starting line. It reveals itself in staying. Scenario 3. You let mood make decisions. You've been there. Some days you're unstoppable. Other days you talk yourself out of showing up because you let emotions decide, doubt decide, comfort decide. But discipline doesn't negotiate with feelings. It executes despite it. Ask yourself, who has control in your life, your emotions or your standards? Because the one that decides your actions is the one shaping your future. Scenario 4. You post a dream but avoid the work. This one hits home for a lot of people. You visualize the life, you quote the leaders, you repost the motivation, but you avoid the hard parts. The silence, the repetition, the sacrifice, the uncomfortable growth. You love the idea of disciplines, but not the process. And discipline is process. It's showing up when it's boring, when nothing is working yet, when progress feels slow, and that's when discipline actually matters. And last, scenario 5. You're secretly tired of letting yourself down. This is the quiet part. You rarely say it out loud, but in your heart, you're tired of breaking promises to yourself, starting over again, watching potential sit unused. You know you're capable of more. And that realization, it hurts, but it's also power. Because awareness is the beginning of ownership, and ownership is the beginning of change. The shift starts here. Now, I'm going to say something that might sting but stick. You don't lack direction. You lack discipline. You don't lack potential. You lack follow through. And this is good news because talent would be hard to manufacture. But discipline, you could start practicing it today. Not tomorrow, not next month, today. One choice, one habit, one moment of saying, I'm done building my future on how I feel. And here's the question I want you sitting with. Not vaguely, not later, now. Where in your life are you waiting for motivation? And when you should be refusing excuses? Because the answer is the door, and discipline is the key. Let's make this real and unstable. Because discipline only sounds good and doesn't change anything. Discipline that gets applied, that reshapes your life. So let's talk about how to build discipline when you don't feel like showing up. Number 1, design your environment to force discipline. Most people try to rely on willpower. Big mistake. Willpower is emotional, environment is automatic. If your surroundings make discipline harder, you drain your energy fighting yourself. If your surroundings make discipline easier, you start winning by default. Ask yourself, what's in your way? If you want to, work out, but your shoes are buried in your closet. Read, but your phone is always in your hand. Eat better, but junk is in plain sight. Focus, but chaos surrounds you. Then your environment is working against you. Discipline grows faster in environments that support action. So redesign your space. Put workouts where you see them. Put distractions where you don't. Make the good habits obvious. Make the lazy habit inconvenient. Leaders design systems, they don't depend on emotion. Number 2, replace motivation with scheduled identity. Motivation fluctuates, identity doesn't. Motivation asks, how do I feel? Discipline asks, who am I becoming? Strong discipline are built when action becomes non-negotiable identities. I don't skip workouts. I don't miss deadlines. I don't show up unprepared. I don't cancel on myself. Not because someone forced you, because that's who you decided to be. Your calendar becomes a character mirror. If it's not scheduled or if it's not serious, discipline means you treat promises to yourself as seriously as you treat promises to others. Number 3, shrink the goals, kill the excuse. Here's where people fail. They wait for perfect timing, high energy, quiet conditions, clear motivation. That moment doesn't exist. So discipline scales it down. No energy to work out, do 5 minutes. No focus to read, read 1 page. No drive to build, build something small. Discipline doesn't need drama, it needs consistency. It's not built in marathons, it's built in repeats. Progress compounds when the goal becomes show up able. Number 4, track what you complete, not what you plan. Most people measure intention. Disciplined people measure execution. Planning feels productive. Checking boxes is productive. But your brain is wired to respond to wins. So track something daily. Workouts completed, habits done, focus time, task finished, personal commitments kept, and here's why this matters. Your brain builds confidence through evidence. Each check mark is identity data. I followed through. I showed up. I kept my word. Confidence grows when discipline leaves proof. And finally, number 5, build consequences into comfort. Here's the truth people avoid. You don't grow because it's comfortable. You grow because consequences forces growth. When discipline has no consequences, it evaporates. So build accountability, tell someone your goal, post your challenge, track publicly, set stakes. When people know you're watching, you perform differently. Leadership creates accountability, and discipline survives under pressure. Now, the final truth. Discipline is not punishment, it's self respect. It's choosing the future you want over the comfort you crave. And here's the line I want burned into your mind. If you're waiting to feel different before you move, you'll wait forever. Movement creates emotion, action creates belief, discipline creates identity. Right now, don't skip this. Where in your life are you asking motivation to show up instead of building discipline yourself? Your career, your health, your leadership, your relationship, your purpose. That's where things change first. Now that we're broken down what discipline really is, let's give you something you can walk away with and use immediately. Not ideas, not hype, not theories, strategy. If you don't build discipline intentionally, life will build habits for you, and most of the time, they won't be the ones you want. So, with research, I'm giving you 3 leadership moves that can change your trajectory if you apply them consistently. These are not motivational, they are structural. They work even when you don't feel like working. Let's go. Move 1. Stop making emotional decisions. Here's the truth. Emotion is a terrible leader. Emotions say, not today. I'm tired. I do it tomorrow. I deserve a break. I'll start next week. Emotion doesn't want progress. It wants comfort. Discipline replaces emotions with structure. You don't decide what you do based on how you feel. You decide based on who you're becoming. That's leadership. And here's your reset. If something matters, it becomes scheduled. If it's not scheduled, it's not serious. Your calendar tells you who you are, not your dreams, not your goals, your calendar. If something is really important, put it on your calendar, protect it, show up. Because if you leave discipline up to feeling, you already lost the battle. Leadership is not reacting, leadership is committing in advance. Move number 2. Build non-negotiables, not a wish list. Here's why most people fail. They treat discipline like a suggestion. I go if I can. I try. I see how I feel. I hope I can follow through. That's not discipline. Discipline is a standard. A non-negotiable is something you don't debate. You don't wake up and question brushing your teeth. You don't feel your way into wearing clothes. You just do it. That's how discipline must operate. You can build non-negotiables. I never skip 2 days in a row. I don't start my day without movement. I make time for growth daily. I finish what I start. I don't cancel on myself. Not because you're motivated, because this is who you are now. Your future is built by what you make automatic. Discipline grows when behavior stops being optional. Move number 3. Become the person who shows up without applause. Here's the deepest truth in discipline. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's clapping for daily effort. Nobody sees early mornings. Nobody sees late nights. Nobody praises invisible work. And that's exactly where discipline is forged. Not when people are watching, but when they're not. Discipline is built when you wake up early while everyone's sleeping. You work while others scroll on their phones. You train while others complain. You commit while others quit. You don't build a strong life in public moments. You build it in private ones. And here's the identity shift that creates power. You stop trying to be disciplined and become someone who simply doesn't quit. No drama, no emotion, no negotiations, just execution. I want you thinking about this tonight. Where in your life are you asking motivation to save you instead of demanding discipline from yourself? That answer, that's your battlefield. And discipline wins wars. The final truth is discipline is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring, even when it's lonely, and especially when you don't feel like it. Because what you do repeatedly creates who you become permanently. Let me leave you with this. You don't need more talent. You need more structure. You don't need more motivation. You need more follow through. You don't need more hype. You need higher standards. Because discipline doesn't just change your schedule, it changes your identity. And once your identity changes, everything begins to fall into place. Now, let me say this personally. I'm not perfect. I'm not someone who figured it out overnight. I'm not preaching from a place of theory. I'm talking from a place of experience. I've missed days. I stored out. I procrastinated. I doubted myself, especially with this podcast. I've started strong and faded too early more times than I could count. And it was discipline, not talent, that brought me back. It was structure, not inspiration, that saved me. It was follow through, not motivation, that changed my life. Everything in my life that's meaningful today started with consistency when it was uncomfortable, and with effort when no one noticed, with discipline when quitting felt easier. So, I'm not here telling you I'm perfect. I'm here telling you I lived what I'm saying and it works. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. So this week, don't wait for motivation. Don't scroll on your phone for inspiration. Don't talk about change. Build a system that forces growth. Put structure around your goals. Put boundaries around your time. Put discipline behind your dreams. Because the disciplined life is the influential life, the respected life, the unstoppable life. And if this episode challenged you, if it hit something inside you, if it reminded you who you're meant to be, share it with someone who needs structure more than hype. Subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me on all social media platforms at The Influence Exchange. And remember, your influence grows every time you choose courage over comfort. I'm JV. Stay curious, stay consistent, and keep influencing others.